Economy of contribution for me is what is needed now for after the failure of economy of consumerism. Because I think, in fact, now we are in a change, an industrial change induced by the growth of digital networks. On digital networks, and particularly on the web, you can't analyze the situation of people as producers on the one side and consumers on the other side. A user or a practitioner of the website, of the web net, is in fact not only a consumer but always already participating to creation of value, to creation of intelligence, to creation also of horrible things sometimes, obviously, but to creation of what I call an associated milieu. For explaining that, it is necessary to explain what happened with the first and the second industrialization. In the 20th century, with the development of consumerism, you have also the development of services industries. And more, the people are short-circuited by the development of services and lost their own knowledge of life. Now, the crisis we had last year, October 2008, which is exactly 1 century after the beginning of the factories of Ford, in which Ford invented Fordism, that is the consumerism. It was the failure, the collapse of the system of consumerism. In fact, there is a disease in consumerism now, and particularly in the young people, in the young generations. And when you have the development of this disease in the young generation, you have the growing also of a new behavior on the web, on which the success of video games, the success of Wikipedia, the success of YouTube, etc., is the success of the possibility to exist and to contribute to your world. It is obviously a digital world, but the digital world is a real world. It is a world digital, the real world at the digital period. And here you have the development of a contribution of a new economy. If an economy is an exchange, it is an economy, which is producing also a value, very important value for Google, for example. It is the most important value, And it is also a new model of production, for example, with open source software production, and in which you have a new type of capitalism, which is maybe more a cooperative organization than a capitalist organization. It's not communism, but it is a new situation of production of economy in which there is capital, in which there are investments, in which there are massive production, industrial production. For me, it is in fact a new form of capitalism. It's not the end of capitalism. It's a new form. But in this new form of capitalism, you have go beyond the opposition production and consumption. You are in the development of what I call an associated milieu, in which you are participating to the evolution of your milieu, symbolic milieu, economic milieu, technical milieu, etc., etc. And on the contrary, in the classical productivist or consumerist society, you are in what I call a dissociated milieu. As a consumer, you are dissociated to production. As a productor, you are dissociated to the decision of management, etc., etc. And I think now this model is finished. And the crisis, even the crisis of the financial crisis, is also the effect of the end of this model.
Where do you think the new lines of conflicts, the new tensions lie in the economy of contributions?
There are many things. Obviously, the first one is the question of property. It was the first one put out by the conflicts, juridical conflicts mainly, about peer-to-peer, for example, about the question of property of softwares, etc., etc. And now with the movement of Creative Commons, which is a new model of organization of industrial property, not a denegation of property as such necessarily, but a new organization of the right of property. This is the first one, obviously. Extremely difficult question. The second one, for me, is the question of what we call, during the Metadata conference last November, it is a question of top-down and bottom-up. When you are in an associated milieu, you are, in fact, in what I call, after Simonon, it's not a concept of Simonon, but it is a concept I developed with concepts coming from Simonon, what I call the process of trans-individuation. And in the process of trans-individuation, you have the production of the individuation, collective individuation, by the co-individuation of several persons, for example, different peers on a peer-to-peer system, which are exchanging things, and in the exchange, for example, we exchange, I send you a music file, you send me another one, and I transform your taste in music, you transform my taste in music. We are in a co-individuation, which is a commerce in the old sense of this word, commerce, which means exchange and relationship. And we can share that with other people. We can produce metadata for explaining what we think about these things. We can, for example, point something in the flux of a temporal object, musical temporal object. You need to listen to this moment, etc., etc. We produce what we call metadata. And this production is a production of links between us, which are in fact a process of co-individuation. But those processes of co-individuation will tend to produce what we call, in connectionist model of cognitive sciences, an attractor. And this attractor will become a meta-stabilization in which we will create, for example, a fashion, a musical fashion. And this process of production is produced here by a bottom-up activity. But in fact, it is always already produced also by top-down activity. Because, for example, when you use functions for tagging, etc., those functions for tagging are given by companies developing those social networks, those devices of softwares, etc., etc., and through those functions, they develop a type of co-individuation which is interesting for themselves for producing, for example, user profiling, selling of files of consumers, of behaviors, etc., etc. It is typically the economy of Google. Now, you are in fact always already also a top-down logic. For me, the main conflict will be, after the question of property, the conflict of organization, of composition between the top-down logic and the bottom-up logic. I am a philosopher, and as a philosopher, I think that the main question is to organize a critique of top-down logic. Not a denunciation of top-down logic. We need top-down logic because we need to produce trans-individuation. Collectivity is possible only if you have trans-individuation as top-down logic. That is a power of construction and of regulation of the network. But we need a power with counterpowers. Counterpowers developed through what I call critical apparatuses. That is, apparatuses which allows the possibility to understand at a meta level, which is what is at stake, what is produced, what are the selections, what are the choices produced by, for example, the choice of this software, the choice of this social organization of the network, etc., etc. So we have to create a collective intelligence and a political intelligence of those questions. And this is obviously a subject of conflict, because the interests of the bottom-up are not the interests of the top-down, obviously. And even if the interests of the workers are not the interests of the capital, nevertheless, the workers need the capital for have work, and the capital needs the workers for having profits. So there are differences of interest, but there is a composition of those differences. And now our business is our task is to propose a policy of